Dystopia warning, obviously. I have been thinking about starting my videos with a downfall of civilization warning, or just letting out a big guttural scream. A lot of the far right recently have been accusing me of being AI, and people say they're not good at comedy, because they're not. Presumably they don't think a real person could ever be made this perfect. That, or they're just really, really f***ing thick. Now I'm going to need you to show this video today to your fash nan or your reform voting uncle. I would show it to my own far right uncle, but I've cut him out of my life. And no, that's actually not a joke. What I'm going to be talking to you about today is the far right's Disinformation Playbook. How it works, how to spot it, and how to hopefully stop more people in your life being radicalised. It is time to cut through the bullshit, so let's get into it. Every time there is unrest in this country, the same scene plays out. A lurid claim goes up online, maybe a crime or a rumour. It spreads faster than knob rot at a Tommy Robinson rally, and then suddenly you have a crowd of thickos outside a hotel. None of this is random, it's strategy. The far right's misinformation war runs on a small set of repeatable tricks, boosted by grift influencers who call themselves citizen journalists, and then gradually laundered into respectability by bigger platforms. Before you know it, bullshit's being spouted on Newsnight as if it's credible. So today I'll map the playbook, show you how Farage and GB News slot neatly into this, the foreign interference that's involved, and give you a quick debunk of Farage's "they're eating the dogs" spin-off, which is "they're eating the swans." If they were, there would be a lot more people walking around with a broken arm because swans are wankers. Then I'm going to teach you how to spot this stuff in the wild whilst you're catching carp to eat for dinner. Because once you see the play, you cannot be played. And once it's obvious to you, we'll have more people that will be able to call it out for what it is. Radicalisation. Yeah. So let's start with part one, shall we? The core definitions. First up, we have misinformation. This is false information shared by mistake. It's like your nan being conned into thinking that asylum seekers are being given free Ferraris and then sharing it into the family WhatsApp group as everyone sits there and wonders, whether or not we can hurry along her eventual retirement into the care home. Next up, we have disinformation. This is the most prevalent form that you're seeing on social media at the moment. This is false or misleading or propaganda-based information that is shared on purpose to manipulate. And then we have malinformation. Technically true information that is weaponized in order to cause harm, like doxing a migrant hotel list. These are standard definitions used by UNESCO. Next up, we have implementation, aka the far right toolkit. No, funnily enough, it's not just stuffed with crayons that they eat. So first up, we have false context. Take a real image or a clip and slap on false context to really harvest the rage, Like the recent example of a busy beach in Goa, circulated under the claim that it was migrants swarming Dover. It was everywhere. But by the time the debunking catches up, it's too late. People believe this bollocks. Number two, fabricated content. Sometimes they just make it up. Like after the Southport killings, when it spread like wildfire that the attacker was actually a Muslim asylum seeker. That travelled faster than any correction. And it prompted widespread unrest. Because the Tories had spent years doing the groundwork on that. They were waiting for a spark, and that false information was a spark, and it was shared by figures with huge followings. Number three, astroturfing. And no, I'm not referring to that, fake grass that makes your garden look shit. Astroturfing looks like local residents rising up, but it's coordinated. It's far right groups co-opting outrage. It's those deep organised networks that turn rumours into so-called community protests. This included members of the BNP turning up and pretending to be local mothers in multiple locations. Next up, conspiracy theories. The far right radicalisation, the alt-right pipeline depends upon conspiracy, because when people believe anything, they're a sitting duck waiting to be manipulated. One of the ones that are at the core of the far right is the Great Replacement theory. It's a kind of racist fever dream, really, that claims that the elites are trying to swap out white people and replace them with brown people. This narrative is fueling the recent mobilisation in the UK. It's either dog whistled or directly referenced by members of the far right and far right politicians, because let's face it, that's what reform is. Why else would they be going with the send them all back plan. This is constantly used in disinformation campaigns and is a key component of radicalisation because it's making people think that they're losing something like their culture or their identity. Which brings me neatly on to propaganda through victimhood, which I touched on in my last video. Analysts tracking UK unrest found that there was an increased use of gendered terms or sensationalist claims and that they were instrumental in whipping up unrest. The whole protecting our women, protecting our girls lot who were shouting "get your tits out for the lads" at a Tommy Robinson march, and of whom many are probably domestic abusers or have sexually harassed or assaulted a woman. They're simply using the crimes that women face at the hands of men like them as a shield to promote racism. Number 6, imposter content. This is really interesting. This is fake community pages or fake patriot pages pushing scary hotel rumours or made up stats about crime waves. This tactic is mapped in the disinformation networks that were found to be behind last year's unrest in Britain, and is pushed by the Centre for Migration Control, which was created by Robert Bates. It's not a think tank, it's literally a reform activist posing as a think tank. Much like the Institute for Economic Affairs, which is very shadily funded. Funnily enough, they don't want people to know who their donors are. Yet propagandists for that think tank end up on national television regularly. It gives a feeling of perceived credibility. And that's how this beds in. Next up, meme warfare. Wrap the hate in joke, call it banter. Plus memes and micro clips accelerate faster than articles on social media. AI images, bot-boosted short-form content is loved by the algorithm, particularly if it comes with a side dose of outrage. Next up, deepfakes and cheapfakes. Doesn't need to be convincing, just needs to solidify what you already believe to be true or make you doubt things. UK reporting shows AI generative junk circulating alongside calls to mobilise. 9, and this is a very important one, information laundering. So something insane like a conspiracy theory, i.e. the Great Replacement theory, it starts on the fringes in the conspiracy network. Then a slightly bigger outlet quotes it, like say GB News. Then it's picked up by people like Farage, Tate, Musk. Then it's presented as a question on a mainstream news outlet. And before you know it, far-right rhetoric and misinformation is directly in the mainstream on prime-time telly, which again gives an illusion of credibility because people trust those outlets and they are not rewarding that trust with honest reporting or unbiased platforming. It's the eyeline effect. People buy what is in their eyeline. It's a common marketing technique. NATO Stratcom refers to this as placement, layering, integration. The very same tactic that's used in Russian psyops. Nice one. Then we have malinformation, as I referenced earlier, which is essentially using a true scrap of information to cause harm. Selective crime stats without base rates, hotel addresses leaked onto Telegram, cherry-picked data, clipped videos that are stripped of context. This was all documented around the UK unrest last year. And then a new one, 11, which is the citizen journalist or auditor approach. Essentially a bloke with a phone outside a hotel, live streaming and making huge bank out of it. Edits to look like the hotels are hiding something, or in some cases breaking in. What these grift influencers do is then cash in via huge ad revenue on YouTube or via donors, the kind of money that the left never gets thrown at them. Now let's move on to part 3, the British laundromats, Nigel Farage and GB News. So how does the pipeline work? As I outlined earlier, Farage will make a claim. The right-wing influencers will leap on it and boost it. They will mobilise and there will be amplification across platforms. Farage himself will say he's just asking questions, as will the presenters in the studio. That phrase is dynamite to them because it plants a seed whilst denying and outsourcing all responsibility for it. And it's something that makes me really wish I hadn't missed the boat when it comes to selling magic beans to reform voters. And then we have GB News, the amplifier. Ofcom has found multiple impartiality breaches. They've platformed known conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers. They even fined the channel over £100,000 over an incident involving Sunak. And in 2025, depressingly, because the Tories defanged Ofcom, GB News won a High Court battle that forced Ofcom to rethink parts of its code on politicians reporting on the news. Hi North Korea, which shows how biased and contested the line in the sand is. Without a free press, you don't have a democracy. We do not have a free press, therefore we don't have a functioning democracy. The motive to keep pushing the envelope is underwritten by deep pockets. Owners have pumped tens of millions of pounds into that channel, despite it running at a loss to keep hold of the megaphone. If I was going to condense Farage's approach into a few lines, it's as simple as floating a smear as a hypothetical, refusing to acknowledge the burden of proof or justify it, then leaving the image in your head, knowing that the groundwork has been done to make you see certain demographics or groups with fear or suspicion. And that isn't debate. That is propaganda and manipulation. This neatly sits along what is referred to as stochastic terrorism, repeatedly using dehumanising or threat-based rhetoric. And over time, you raise the statistical risk that someone will be unhinged enough to act. Just look at the murder of Joe Cox. It's increasing the probability of harm with all plausible deniability baked in. We had an example of this recently, didn't we? With the whole, they're eating the swans, they're eating the carp bollocks. Farage said, what if I told you? Notice how it's framed as a question. That migrants are eating swans and carps in royal parks. You notice the framing of it. Royal, British identity, swans. The royals used to munch the shit out of swans. Just as a brief aside, but they did. You know, I've even got a mug on it that has the Queen with I eat swans. So it must be true. Anyway, the royal parks were forced to deny that there's any evidence of this happening. Can you imagine? Even the RSPCA poured cold water on it. Yet people, bots, were pushing this online with one video, I think, that the RSPCA had to attend a number of years ago. This is a classic seed plant. Not only does the lurid image stick, but it's bringing in elements of British culture. This is our culture, they're eating it, literally. Meanwhile, dickhead saunters off into the sunset and the thickos with the pitchforks fight it out. And this has a direct link to MAGA, obviously. They're eating the dogs, you know. Trump and JD Vance both amplified a bizarre rumour in Ohio that Haitian migrants were eating people's pets. Local officials, state Republicans said there was no evidence for this. The claims triggered bomb threats and evacuations. Same playbook, same harm. Reform have no original ideas. Everything that they're doing is a carbon copy of MAGA. Also the same shady billionaire donors. And why do these lies travel so well? Because not only do algorithms reward outrage, but being a part of the far right, supporting people like Reform or MAGA, relies entirely on emotion, not logic or sense or facts. These people are deep in their emotions. They have a lot of big feelings, but not a lot of evidence to back it up. The people involved don't even care if it's accurate as long as it confirms their bias or their bigotry. And social media, unregulated as it is, certainly doesn't give a shit either. It's a production line. They churn out fake content, misinformation, memes, conspiracy, AI junk, and they try to put it on a similar level to real journalism, or they call it debate, when real debate consists of arguing points of fact and logic, not emotion. And at the end of that conveyor belt, you've got GB News, Farage, etc. polishing the turd and beaming it directly into living rooms and calling the insanity common sense. You know, up is down, etc. GB News bankrolled by hedge fund billionaires, much like MAGA, much like Farage, and political donors who want deregulation and power. Reform and its hangers-on get their money from all the same places, the same dark corners. And what's their MO? To keep the public nice and angry whilst they keep cashing in. Now, I know that I'm preaching to the converted here, but if you can try and help your relatives realise that when a Farage type just asks questions, or when the GB News lot dress up conspiracy as a debate, this is nothing more than disinformation laundering. Because by the time the correction comes, if it ever comes, the image and the feeling is already living rent-free. This is referred to as computational propaganda, coordinated manipulation at scale, and is echoed in broadcasting, in our newspapers, not just online, which is admittedly the primary radicalisation tool. So how do we spot it? If it's too fast and too uniform, like a sudden surge of identical clips from different accounts, that's coordination, not conversation. UK research into the riot cycle showed all those narrative networks lining up in sync, because that's how they do it. If it's a shocking clip and there's no provenance, no date, no outlet, it's normally bait. Again, just asking questions. Usually means propaganda with deniability. Comedy as a cover. It's just a meme. Often means we're normalising this whilst dodging all responsibility. So finally, let's call this all what it is. The far right isn't just lying for fun, it's profit. It's a factory of bullshit. So, when the next shocking clip drops into your feed when your nan tries to share a meme of how it's going to become mandatory to call your son Mohammed, or they're trying to ban the poppy, get to stop and think about who it benefits. It's not you, it's not your nan, it's nobody in our community, it's the billionaires, the media barons, and the political operators who want Britain poorer, malleable, easier to control. Don't forget, the enemy doesn't arrive via small boat. The enemy holidays on super yachts. So that's the game, that's the playbook. And by being armed with facts and logic and not big feelings like a toddler, this is how you avoid being played. And believe me, you are being played. The people selling this to you are not patriots. They are traitors. And how do I know that besides all the manipulation? Well, these are psyops, many of which aren't even occurring from Britain, but other countries that want our democracy and our economy to fail. Think of that next time you see a half-shagged flag up a lamppost. Anyway, until next time, anyone got any Valium? Nah, probably not. Don't have nightmares.